This week, I've turned myself into a Strava hunter. I've been touching on this, and it's probably going to come through over the next few weeks a bit more and more. I am moving at the moment, and that causes a bit of mayhem in your life. And testing, am I man of my word, definitely strains the motivation because you every other moment outside of work is, oh, I've got to plan this. We sorted a house this week, which is excellent. That's exciting. But next is movers, boxes, yeah, a million one things. But anyway, enough of that. That's my excuse for now. But I turned training into a game like I always do. And because my time in Melbourne, I'm not going to leave Melbourne for good. I will be coming down for work quite regularly. But my time living full time in Melbourne is coming to an end. What I've done is actually wanting to leave my mark. There's been a few Strava segments I've either had in the past. I might still have, but I think they might, be up for contention. Maybe they could get lost easy enough. Or they're segments I've had eyed off. If you don't know, there's a way, I'll get into this in a moment, but I've had them starred on my Garmin unit for, I don't know, the better part of 2 or 3 years with the intention of one day my legs might be good enough or I'm in good enough shape or the conditions might be good enough. Look, if you're a cyclist, you know what I'm saying. Essentially, you're just waiting for that opportunity. And yesterday and also on Wednesday, which is Saturday and Wednesday for this week, I did. It lined up. So I managed to grab two that I've been wanting for the longest time. Now, I wouldn't say I'm in my top form, but I'm definitely in good shape. And I think this really shows that I took a good whack off both of these segments. And a few things that I've been speaking about through these logs also kind of just lined up. So good night's sleep, obviously last log, tick the box there. Good night's sleep before both of these. My sleep score was around 98, 99. So yeah, cruising, felt really good. Bit of rest too. It was more of a recovery week for me. I think I touched on this. I was due a recovery week after a few bigger sessions. So easier week, allowing for me to have, a couple more targeted small-ish efforts. The longest segment here is around 9 minutes. So nothing too wild. All right, well, let's jump in and look at number one. So ignore that one, but let's look at this one first. I did this one on my lunch break. I excused myself of eating. Well, I had a smoothie when I got back, but I did this over my lunch break. You can see 30 minutes. I get around 30 minutes for lunch, so I was very quick. And what I did was literally a block. Throwback. I think I touched on this earlier or a while ago that Melbourne was the most locked down city. This is a throwback loop for me. For a while, I was a law-abiding citizen, right? And I did my 5K radius crap that, was put on us. And this was my 5K radius block. So I could do this. I'm baiting out where I live as well, but who cares? I'm moving. Anyway, so I used to go literally, it's literally a square or a rectangle. And it's actually quite nice. Like this road up here is really beautiful. So's this little stretch through here. I really like that. Just a whole lot. It's interesting, there's something about it. It's got a little bit of something. Now, when I went out on this one, it was pretty much just I wanted some sun. So it was very nice weather, 24 degrees. It felt like 24, so humidity was fine, around 50%. The wind was a little bit up. It was a southwest as well. So obviously that's north, that's south, that's west. So it was coming this way, which hints to why I ended up sneaking for the segment. The too long didn't read is where my hand is. That's the segment I went for. So yeah, I got to the back half of this one. Like it's not a long ride. Look, it's 30 minutes. But I got into the back half of my ride and I just thought, hey, I'm feeling all right. This was just a purely wanted to get some sun in kind of ride. And then I kind of sniffed the wind a bit. I was like, I think it's coming the right way. Not that it was much. Look, 10K an hour is not huge. It's also not nothing either. So I'm not going to pretend I had no wind assistance. But I was like, well, it kind of is going to help. And also, I should throw up a picture. But anyway, we'll get to that. But yeah, so look, at the end of the day, I thought, yeah, this is a very good chance of going for it. So we'll scroll down, and this long story short is, yeah, we got it. We almost got another one just incidentally. I didn't go for this one, But yeah, we got this one. It's called Kings or Not. It's very close to me. It literally is this awkward, very awkward entry into this street. It's called Kingston Road, if you know, you know. And I just stood on it straight away. You'll see, we'll go into quickly analyze this. We'll also have a look at the actual other efforts, but you could see I maxed out at 971. I'm not a very powerful rider. So my max would be around 1200 on a good day. Yeah, maybe 13. Maybe I've once seen 13. So we're not too far off my max. And you could see we kept it above that 550 line the whole way through, just to that last bit. Cadence as well was nice and high. So I would say I probably had a little tiny bit more I could have give through here. But yeah, I was very, very happy with that effort. If I go back to the overview of that segment, let's click it. You can see I put 5 seconds into the next guy. Don't actually know who any of these people are, if I'm honest, but I managed to put 5 seconds in on a pretty short segment. So I'm confident with that one that that should stay the test of time. That being said, I reckon you could probably get down to 42, 41, maybe. Whoa, you'd have to be really figuring that corner out at the start. But sub 40 could be on the cards. The trick is it's like you kind of have to take the corner because there's a median strip through. You have to take the corner at around 35, and that's pushing it. But yeah, anyway, that was happy days. Now, the bike I did it on, I haven't really shared this on my vlogs, but I'll get out of the way quickly. You can see it's back there. This is my S-Works SL8, so I love that bike. I used to ride Specialized ages ago, never as a sponsored rider. Actually, when I retired, I got myself a Specialized. I paid full clip. It was before I worked in the industry. And yeah, they were everything I thought they would be. I used to always tell my mates, I always wanted to be on a Specialized sponsored team. Like, you never get to pick as a cyclist, really, but I always wanted to be on a Specialized sponsored team, just never happened. So happy days with that one. All right, so the next one, what I want to do first is throw up a picture for us. So I'm going to just sort that out now. All right, here it is. So this one, this segment for me, story and a half with it, but I used to do a bunch ride early, like really early. My story is pretty long with my journey to Melbourne, but I moved down for a job with Rafa, and I used to do a bunch ride with them that would take in this segment. And look, the Rafa bunchies aren't the quickest, but there is one it's pretty on, like they get a bit spicy. And I never got the record, but I was always like somewhere sort of close on this one that made me very interested. Plus I love dogs, and I think Guide Dogs is one of the best charities in Australia, to be honest, with what they do and who they support. Just love the stories they have and everyone that's involved there. So for whatever reason, this one spoke to me. And I've always lived near this segment as well, so it's been on my horizon. I know, as you can see, spoiler, I managed to get it. So I got it by 11 seconds according to the Garmin. I PR'd it by 37 seconds. And I just shared this to a few of my mates. Like, I was that stoked with it. Like, it'd been on my cards since, this is longer than 3 years. It's been on my cards for like 8 years to get this one, probably. It's not necessarily a nothing segment. This one's got like 5,000 attempts, I think. So at least it's a bit more than the last one I shared. But yeah, this one was very cool. And look, these are just a nod that the training's going well. Like, I'm on track for Brisbane as all things showing at the moment. But yeah, I was beyond stoked with that one. So story with it, I'll get the Strava back up, was I went out yesterday morning. This was actually very fresh. I went out yesterday morning nice and early. Just kind of knew I was going to have a sniff at it. I intentionally was doing that loop. It's a certain loop I do where I literally just go, like, it's a 40K loop, basically. It's pretty simple. It's a basic loop near me. It takes in the main boulevards of Melbourne. Yeah, it's pretty good. So let's get over the Strava and take a look at it. All right, so here is that ride. You can see there was little to no wind, 4.1K. It was a south as well, so coming up from the bottom. The segment we're looking at is up the top, so kind of not favorable, the winds. Maybe for the very first bit it was, but certainly not for the last bit. And there wasn't enough wind anyway to really worry. The conditions, sublime. I love this kind of weather. 17 degrees or even a little bit colder, like 14 to 17. Oh, perfect window for riding your bike. You don't get too sweaty. I'm a big sweater on the bike for whatever reason. But yeah, overall, this was a terrific ride, just in general, to just see how the legs were going. I think on my Garmin, it was normalized 3:05 by the end of it. So I didn't exactly just sit up it by the end of the effort, but overall, very happy. And you can see there it is, the starred segment. Let's have a quick look. First and foremost, there is the previous record holder. I don't really know any of these people either, but I think they're mostly triathletes. So Melbourne's pretty heavy triathlete city. Anyway, we beat the record, yes, by 11 seconds, 42.3 k an hour average. Let's go in to analyze and take a look at that. So we topped out early at the max of 65. It does go down a bit of a hill. Literally, as you cross the highway, just down and crossing it basically is a bit of a downhill. And yeah, I stood on it. That's not really where I hit my max power because it was just before then. But yeah, I gave it some. And you can also see from my cadence, one thing I wanted to highlight here is I'm more of a grinder. As weird as I used to say. I like low cadence work. Like I operate really well in 85 kind of territory. That's nice for me. So for whatever reason, I was sitting on 100 here. I think sometimes this tends to happen when I'm coming into really good form. I switch to high cadence. I don't know why. I love to look into the psychological or psychology state of that, of how come I flip so easily. Like when I'm building fitness, low cadence work is where I produce my best numbers. Even efforts in races, I'll float out like let's say an 83, 84 cadence. And here, I'm up at 100. So for anyone listening that is going, what the hell is cadence on a bike? It's like running. It's the same idea. So the Kenyan runners always do very high cadence running, right? And they're the best runners in the world. It's kind of about efficiency. So higher cadence means more efficient. You're having to put in less effort, just a little bit more frequent. It tends to increase the heart rate, which is why it's better for fitter people. Maybe I'll just answer my own question there. But it is the most efficient way to produce your best possible result or best possible power. So anyway, I've managed to average 100 cadence for around a 9-minute effort. That is nuts for me to see. My power was averaged at 852. I think I checked my Garmin not long after this, and from memory, it was around a 380 normalized. I'm floating a 387 FTP currently. I'm gonna estimate it has increased a little. It's probably in the 390s now, based off this effort. Really, I'd say it's up there because this didn't feel like I'm preempting this a bit. I felt like I could have squeezed a fair bit more out of it, particularly in the later bit of this. But basically, I'll walk you through the segment. You go down a little hill, up a small little rise. You can see actually, I'll trace it up here. Up a small tiny rise, it plateaus slightly, and then you're into the first main boulevard of Melbourne, which is Ivanhoe Boulevard. It's a very chopped up road. It's not the best surface. I kind of rate that. My Specialized back here, I have to do a full breakdown soon, but runs 26 mil tires, bit narrow for today's standards, but just enough to be okay through there. And it's a couple rollers into what becomes really a descent, very, very steep descent into another kicker on, I don't know the name of this road, but no, it's not the Chandler Highway. Heidelberg Road, I think it's called. It's one of the main roads in Melbourne, if you know, kind of ones. The main road out to the north from the city. You swing a left there. Now it's mainly this one. This is a real take some risks. We'll put it lightly. Corner to take. I was fortunate. I had a car just enough in front of me that it was touch and go, but just enough that, look, it cleared the way. Like I knew by it going, me coming through, just almost grabbing its tail, that I was safe. So I didn't have to take it was a calculated risk. We'll put it there and we'll leave it there. Back here at the start, you do have to time some traffic lights, and I was very fortunate. My previous best, that one that I showed on the screen, 37 seconds back or whatever it was, I got caught at these traffic lights, and I would have had this segment that time, but I was stopped. I counted it for 25 seconds plus slowing in and starting again. I would have lost all 37 from literally that alone. And then, you come down to the next boulevard there, Q Bully down here, which is the other main part of main riding of Melbourne, is Q Boulevard's the hotspot. But yeah, I was beyond stoked. Obviously, no HR data. I'm still waiting for my new HR strap to turn up. I've didn't done this long enough, right? I'm pretty good at estimating. I'd say I was probably around 175 beats. Towards the end, probably 190-ish, because I did ramp the power in the later half again. But overall, very happy. Like this is good signs of power coming in, and obviously form, fitness, all the great stuff. And then I wrapped it up down the bottom there. You'll see down in here with Richmond Boulevard. I call this one, or Hawthorne Boulevard. I don't know. I don't know what people call it. Maybe Burnley Boulevard. And that's the main three boulevards in Melbourne. So you got Ivanhoe, you got Q, and then you've got Hawthorne, Burnley Boulevard, whatever it is. And you can connect them together really nicely. I used to do that when we were given the 10K radius in Melbourne lockdowns, and it's actually a beautiful bit of riding. One of the few rides I'll miss in Melbourne. There's not many because, to be honest, you got to ride through some junk to get to anything good usually. But this one is pretty enjoyable. Overall, though, that's what the week's been about for me, really. There's not much of an update in terms of looking into what's working well, other than this proves to me that everything has been working rather well. I've got pretty good fitness on the bike. I'm 9 weeks, 8 weeks almost now from Tour de Brisbane. So, all in all, it's more about the weight. I'm sitting at 77 kilos. I actually am happy with that. I probably wouldn't care if I don't lose another two. Ideally, I lose another two, and I know I've got around 5 to 10 watts I'll gain in my FTP. I think that's winning numbers, really. That's not to put it too bluntly or a lot of pressure on myself, but I think I'm there. But overall, like, yeah, things that have been working really well is loose. I'm not big on, in this day and age now where I'm at in my life, I'm not big on heavy structure. It doesn't work for me because life always gets in the way. And I shared early on in one of my logs that do not beat yourself up for a missed session. Tomorrow's another day. And I live and breathe that, right? Like for me, it's all about having the memory of a goldfish with training, whether a good session, a bad session, it didn't happen session, forget it. Once you've completed it, forget it. You've got the adaptations now, they're in your legs. Now let's move into tomorrow. What are you going to do tomorrow instead? Make it better, make it worse, maintain. What could you do? That's to me what it's all about. And that's what I've been putting together going into this. The other thing I wanted to touch on briefly in this one was fueling. Now, this is a funny one for me to talk about because when I was racing, fueling was, well, let's put it this way, carbs were bad. You weren't allowed to have carbs because that would make you fat. It's funny to say. Like, it's just how cycling was. And I look, cycling is an old school sport. It does everything slower than the rest except for being tested. It's the most tested sport in the world. So tested is in testing for performance and enhancing drugs. It's the most advanced there. But what it isn't advanced in, and it's starting to come into new age now, which is exciting, but is training. Well, training a little bit, like better understanding why you should spend certain time in zones. That's definitely come on a lot more, and probably a bit more on tracking as well. Accountability, all that kind of stuff. But fueling, boy, is that the biggest one. I can tell you, like late in a race, I would feel so fatigued despite doing nothing. And in training, though, I'd feel better. And I'm talking big and the big training blocks. Like, I used to do 1,000K weeks, 30 hours, all that kind of stuff. And I could feel better in that. And looking back on it right now, I can tell you it was fueling. So in training, I would always take a bag of snakes like without fail. It was the main piece of food I'd have is just bag of snakes in the back pocket. I'm talking like a half a kilo bag, like a massive amount because you're out there for 6 hours. And I just sit there snacking like every 20 minutes, just having a snake, having a snake, having a snake. And I would feel good. I could come to the end of a 200, 180, 200K ride. I feel okay. I could still smash out a sprint if I needed, a couple segments or whatever would come at the ends, and I'd feel fine. Go to a race though, and the DS is the one preparing your food for the day with the chef or whatever's telling them what you should be doing. And yeah, there was no carbs. I remember that. There was maybe a ham sandwich. Somehow that's meant to fuel you. And there would be a low carb bread in that sandwich. And that was it. You expected to somehow race on that. And even the gels we were taking at the time were like, I think I can remember like maybe 18, 20 grams of carbs in them, which is for me wild to think of what you do now. For reference, what I've found has worked really well for me. The second the ride gets over an hour and a half, I'm taking on carbs. If it's under that, I'm just thinking a little bit about what am I going to eat, I say an hour or so before, trying to get in something substantial that has a bit of carbs in it so I can burn at least. I run on this kind of rough maths, right? So per 20-minute blocks, for every 20 minutes, I want at least 30 grams of carbs. So then you go 30, 60, 90. So for the hour, I like to hit 90 for bigger efforts. That's roughly my maths or what I find works for me. I can go more and I do go a little bit better with more, but also I put on weight or I maintain weight. So I'm trying to lose a little still. So I'm trying to, play the game a bit with that. But what I've found in my training, like I don't even want to share this sometimes, is that's the biggest game changer. I've sometimes feel better than I ever have in any race I've ever won with taking on carbs. And what I do, like I've listened to like all the shows that are out there, like Nero Show and all those guys that talk about it all the time. I literally just do the sugar in the bin method. It's the cheapest form of fuel I've ever done in my cycling career or time on a bike even, which is, we're talking 25 years now. It's the cheapest form. A bag of sugar, whether you get raw, white, whatever it is I think $2 or $3 typically for me. And that's my sugar now for the month. That's my fuel done. A box of gels, at least when I was racing, like thankfully for a while I was given them, but trying to make it into that league, I wasn't. And they'd be outrageously expensive. And now I'm just running sugar in a bin. That's it. That's my fuel. At Tour de Brisbane, I think it's what I'll run. I'll probably add in some pickle juice or something like that to stop a cramp just in case that happens. And then maybe some, sodium, like a sodium solution just to replace sweat to hopefully also stop the cramps as they come up. That's it. Like it's not changing anything from what I'm doing in training, and most of it or all of it will just be done in liquid. So I just run one of those flasks, like the runner flasky things. They're soft. I just slip it in the back pocket so I can still take on 2 full bidons. Simple as that. And it's like I said, if I talk about the biggest change in any piece of training I do or in general fitness, like running, swimming, riding my bike, going for a walk, it's literally, how did I fuel the body? That's the question I always ask myself. If it's a bad session, I say, okay, but what did you eat? That's the first question I always ask myself after. Okay, what were you like going into it? If I ticked some boxes and think, I should have been a bit better, then I go to what last week's topic was, which was how did I sleep? And then that's a whole nother can of fish to unpack. But in terms of what is going to get you gains quickly, fuel. Just literally fuel your body. I know if you're trying to lose weight, it's always a contentious topic of what should I eat, carbs in, carbs out, or cows in, cows out. Of course, that's always your prerogative to take on. You need to find out what's the right balance for you. But whatever fuel makeup works the best for you, make sure you hit those targets. It's like, would you go to the gym without having protein in your system or taking on protein after? God, no. Like, that you're there to build muscle, take on protein to repair the muscle. If you're a cardio athlete, it's pretty simple. Carbs, it's proven. There's that many research papers out there about it. Shout out to them. I know I didn't include the link to the one from the sleep one, but I've read enough of carbs equals the most fast sourced fuel for the body. So it's the first thing the body is going to grab onto to burn your engine. It's like giving 98 unleaded for your car or whatever best fuel works for your car. There isn't a better fuel source. It will not burn anything else first. And for it to burn other fuels, we're talking different ratios it likes to burn that fuel and how hard it is to take on and put your body into that state. It's not impossible. It's definitely doable, like the ketosis and all that kind of stuff. That's all great stuff. I'm just talking about what works really well for me. And I can't state enough how much high carb diet works really well just to get results on the bike. Not talking losing weight and all that kind of stuff, but I'm kind of a big believer if you're trying to lose weight, you should do a very good form of cardio fitness. If you want to do high intensity cardio fitness, which to be honest, in terms of calorie burning, is going to get you the results the quickest, fuel yourself correctly. Simple as that. You know, understand what ratio works for you. I know there's a lot out there that talks about like 120, 140 grams of carbs per hour. That's nuts. You can take on that if it works for you. That to me sounds wild. I'm not there yet. But yeah, what's been working for me, 90 grams per hour. I take on 60 if it's an easier ride. If it's a race, I probably will bump it to 110, say, for Tour de Brisbane. And I'm just sipping every 20 minutes. That's the goal. Just 20 minutes. I got a little notification thing that pops up on my Garmin. Time to sip. If I'm on Zwift, the setup behind me, same story, except the clock's literally in the HUD thing. It's that easy. But yeah, that's the message this week is fuel. You can't state that enough. You'll probably all need to go on your own journey to understand what works for you. I went on my own journey over many years and I've discovered literally sugar. Like that's all it is. And I've been told for so long how bad sugar is for you. I do understand it's bad for your teeth. I know that for a fact. But in terms of a fuel source for the body, why do you think early days we were just eating fruits? What's in fruits? What's its highest content? Like what is its main macro? It's sugar, it's carbs. And it worked really well back then. Nowadays, it's just a quicker source of taking it on. And then the other big thing is, yeah, look, gamify your training as much as you can. For me, I'm stoked with this week, 2 segments, can't beat that. Now I'm actually excited to train next week. There are a few, things to try and derail my motivation, but yeah, I'm going to have new segments to tackle soon when I move to Newcastle. And that's the other message I want to share is I'm relocating back up to Newcastle. I've got new segments to tackle. I haven't really gone hard on like being a segment hunter, but I think I'm going to. So let me know what you think of that. I have to figure out how I'm going to capture that content, but I really want to kind of just see and highlight different segments I'm trying to track each month or weekly, and then just share that. Like, how do I go about it? What kind of training do I do? What do I, the whys and ins and outs of it, and just make it kind of fun. There's a couple already I know in Newcastle I really want to get. There's one in particular I used to have that someone took off me, so I've got that on the chopping block straight away. All right, that's been it for this week, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the log.